In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to our third program of Face to Face, which is a competition where Khuddam all across the world send in their video responses to a scenario we present them about religion and faith. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when the promised Messiah ﷺ published his first book, Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, the atmosphere was such that Islam and Muslims were being attacked very, very strongly at an intellectual level, and there were no responses being given, no robust responses. But the arguments presented in support of Islam and the Holy Prophet ﷺ and the Holy Quran in Khuddamul Ahmadiyya by the promised Messiah ﷺ were revolutionary. They literally dumbfounded those who were attacking Islam, and they served as a ray of light, a ray of hope for the Muslim Ummah. And so over the last 100 years or so, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat has been presenting these arguments in support of Islam to the world, and people have really been understanding Islam on a much better light. In line with this, we wanted to see if our Khuddam also could present their arguments in a very nice way with, delivery, conviction, and their way of argumentation. And so we started this competition. Of course, we have various scenarios over these programs, and today's scenario is very interesting indeed. The scenario goes as follows: that your colleague at work is prepared to convert to Islam. However, they're not quite sure and they don't quite understand the concept of Barda. So we asked our contestants to respond to this scenario. And of course, we have today 5 contestants who we'll be listening to and speaking to, and we have our trusted panel of judges. On the extreme right, we have Amir Safi Sahib, who is the editor of Review of Religions, a magazine started by the promised Messiah ﷺ in English. To our center, we have Atal Momin Zahid Saab, who is a professor at Jamia Ahmadiyya, United Kingdom. And next to him, of course, Quddus Arif Saab, who is also a professor at Jamia Ahmadiyya, United Kingdom. Gents, Jazakallah for joining us. We're going to go to our first contestant, and he's very far away indeed from the United Kingdom, in New Zealand. We have Taslim Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Taslim.
Assalamu alaikum.
Taslim, tell us the time. We're 7 p.m. here. Tell us the time in New Zealand.
Right now, it's just after 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, and so it's a Monday. Are you planning on going anywhere?
Yes, I'm afraid that school has...
Okay, you're going to go to school, mashallah. That's a lot of commitment. Taslim, tell us, we all know about the All Blacks, the rugby team, very, very successful. Tell us a bit more about New Zealand, something maybe we don't know.
It's about the same size as the UK, but it's only got a population of about 5 million, just under 5 million.
Okay, Jazakallah. I certainly didn't know that. Taslim, tell us how you prepared for this scenario.
So, to prepare, I went online to alislam.org, and I read lots of articles relating to the veil, and I looked at Khutbah of Nur and some articles from Review of Religions as well.
And was it challenging?
It was a little challenging to get everything into a cohesive argument, but I managed in the end.
Okay, well, let's go ahead to your response.
These days, extremists on both sides are engaged in a virtual war. On the one hand, you have closed-minded fundamentalists who maintain that women should cover themselves from head to toe in acres of black cloth. On the other hand, you have equally closed-minded people who say that they should cast off their modesty in the name of so-called progression and freedom of conscience. Everyone here claims to know what's best for the women of their society. But first you need to understand that parda is one of the most misunderstood Islamic practices. It's been bent out of proportion by both East and West. So let's look at the basics. The Holy Quran says in chapter 24, verses 31 to 32, "Say to the believing men and to the believing women to restrain their looks and guard their private parts." The meaning here is obvious. Men, in particular, should avoid making women uncomfortable with their behavior. But it seems that indeed, as far as the dress code is concerned, parda is aimed mainly towards women. They're told to cover themselves, but it's not just Islam. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it said how Rebecca covered herself with a veil when she met Isaac. And of course, Mary, mother of Jesus Christ himself, is always shown as being modestly dressed. So this idea of modesty, it's continued through all religions. But why do we need this concept of parda? Well, the Islamic teachings are based on an idea of prevention being better than cure. The safeguards that parda gives us saves us from the moral degradation that leads to adultery, broken families, harassment, teenage pregnancies, etc. In the USA alone, almost 20% of all marriages ending in divorce ended because of extramarital affairs. The modest dress that a Muslim woman adopts gives her peace of mind. She doesn't have to worry about her physical attributes and can thus pursue her other talents and skills. The promised Messiah ﷺ tells us that in a perfectly pious society, there'd be no need for parda, because evil thoughts would be the last thing on anyone's mind. Everyone, he says, would be adorned in the robes of righteousness. But you can't put food before a starving animal and then expect it not to eat it. Freedom is good, but the people who it's being given to have to be ready for it. In short, a woman who's observing parda tells everyone around her that she's not to be treated like any other ordinary lady, because she is under the protection of the Lord of all the worlds.
That was Taslim Ahmed from New Zealand. Qudus Sahib, initial thoughts?
Yeah, no, mashallah, Taslim Sahib, excellent response. I thought you were very eloquent, very confident. You made me feel comfortable as a person listening to your response. So bravo to you, done an excellent job. If I could ask you a question, Taslim Sahib, that what have you understood from the term parda? Is it just a physical thing? What do you reckon parda is?
Now, while parda is also, it's a physical commandment that the women should cover themselves. It's also for men as well. It's a sort of mindset, a sort of philosophy. Men should also lower their gazes and modestly.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Taslim Sahib. Mashallah, I'm absolutely amazed at the way you were able to explain the concept of parda, and at such a young age you seem to be very young actually, mashallah. I appreciate the way you prepared for it and the way you were able to explain it. Could I ask you one question? In the end, you basically, from the reference of promised Messiah ﷺ, you said that in a perfectly moral society, there will be no need of parda. And once we are able to achieve that level of piety and righteousness, then we won't need parda anymore. So is that what you understood from the reference of promised Messiah ﷺ, or can you elaborate it a bit further actually?
Yes, so the example of the Khana Kaaba comes to mind. Women don't, although they don't sort of practice the traditional parda, they don't cover their faces, and that's because it's a very spiritual location. You're there for a very, so from there I understood that from the writings of the Prophet that the parda is only necessary in a society where it's sort of called for like this.
I think Taslim Sahib, you probably you need to elaborate this a bit further, I think, because the promised Messiah ﷺ, I think, did not mean that once we achieve a perfectly moral society, we won't need parda anymore. The promised Messiah ﷺ actually meant that we cannot achieve such perfectly moral society anywhere to basically where we can say that we don't need parda anymore. Basically, it is because of the morals of people, we can never attain such pious and moral society anywhere, basically. So I think you needed to elaborate that a bit further. Anyhow, I'd leave that to.
I think, yeah, Taslim, did you understand that point?
Yes, I understood the point, yes.
Perfect. Amir Saab, he said a number of things. What did you take?
I really enjoyed the way you spoke, Taslim Saab. You had a very approachable style and you spoke confidently and convincingly. I really enjoyed the way you spoke, so well done on that front. And you mentioned you researched from Review of Religions. I might have to give you an extra point for that. You mentioned one thing, Taslim Saab, about that it may seem like the dress code in Islam is aimed mainly at women. I just wanted to ask you about this point, if you could elaborate, please.
Yes, so in the Quran, the women are instructed that they should draw their outer coverings towards them. So in this regard, I was the physical aspect of parda is mainly aimed at women.
Sure. So I think it's worth elaborating on this point that in the preceding verse or the verse before, it tells men also to observe parda or to lower their gaze. And I want to refer actually just this morning, our beloved Hazur Khamis, he had a class with young boys and this question was asked about covering, and I think it links in directly here. And what Hazur basically said is that this concept of parda is for both men and women. And the reason why men are told to lower their gaze and women are told to cover is essentially it's a protection for men and women. And actually in Islam it's a complement to women. Women are trusted more than men. And men cannot be trusted, and for this reason women are told to cover themselves. So actually Islam considers women to be more chaste and pure and men to be untrustworthy, and that links in what the Prophet ﷺ has said.
That's a really good point you made there, Amir Saab. Some great feedback from all the judges. We need to go on to our next contestant, who is also pretty far away in Pakistan, Awais Rabbani Saab. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So, Awais Saab, tell us about your motivation. What motivated you to participate in this competition?
Well, this has been my first competition for MT International England, and I really want to be part of it because I have been, I thought it was a good competition. It was a healthy competition, and I really wish to be part of more competitions in the future as well, because it helps you to improve yourself and to know that where you stand when it comes to these competitions.
MashaAllah, yeah. I mean, throughout the whole show we've been doing, it's all about improving the argumentation, the delivery styles as well. Tell us about, quickly, just in about 20 seconds, the sources you consulted.
I started with the Holy Quran, then I proceeded with the philosophy of the teachings of Islam by the Prophet Islam. I also consulted the women in my family, my wife, because parda is something which I really need to ask from the women as well, from their perspective as well.
Jazaka, let's go on to your video response.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. If I'm to explain to my colleague at work who is willing to convert to Islam and is already inspired by the teachings of Islam, the concept of parda, I would ask him to have a look at the current situation of the Western society. Now these societies, they have rejected the concept of parda. As a result, they have seen the rise in the objectification of women based on their physical appearances and looks. An example which I have in mind and which I'm going to narrate here is that if you place a soft bread before a hungry dog, it would be vain to hope that he would pay no attention to it. Similarly, their men, they can't control their urges. What happens is when they look at these women, they succumb into their inner desires. This is where parda comes in. Now, parda in Islam, it states that men should lower their gaze and guard their modesty. So if their men would act upon it, they would not succumb to their inner desires, as they would not further act upon the urges. Therefore, not only protecting themselves, but also safeguarding the women. Parda, it serves to protect and safeguard women from unwandering gazes of men. Those women who observe parda, they send a clear message that they are not objects to scrutinize. Rather, if they are to be evaluated or acknowledged, they should be recognized based on their knowledge, wisdom, and intellectual capabilities. Now, West has been bashing Islam and considers Purdah as a narrow-minded approach. When Europeans invaded Africa, they saw a lot of tribes there who went about naked. They forced them to cover themselves as a sign and as a mark of civilization. Now, these advocates of civilization have forgotten their own roots. One often wonders that if those primitive tribes were more civilized than the rest of the world today, because the rest of the world today is imitating the same ways of the so-called primitive society. So Purdah, it has, as I've mentioned before, served two purposes. It safeguards and protects the rights of men and women, and it is a symbol of civilization. This is the concept of Purdah.
That was Awais Rabbani Sahab from Pakistan. Just as a reminder for our viewers, you will be able to vote at the end of the program for your top 2 contestants on mta.tv/face2face. Momin Sahab, there was a number of things said there. Your initial feelings.
Jazakallah, Fatih Sahib. Awais Sahib, mashallah, spoke well. And as we all know, it's a hugely divisive and controversial topic. There are a host of different opinions about it.
And I think just on that point, it's important to remember that all the opinions expressed by our contestants are not necessarily the opinions of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community as well.
Yeah, mashallah. And keeping in mind that it is a divisive topic, he spoke well, mashallah. Awais Sahib, could I just ask you one question? You mentioned the end of your answer that Purdah safeguards the rights of men and women. What did you mean by that? Purdah safeguards the rights of men and women. Could you elaborate that a bit further?
By that I meant that men, they actually, as our beloved Hazur mentioned earlier in one of the classes, that it actually protects men in a way that they are able to lower their gaze and guard their modesty. Therefore protecting themselves if they're guarding their modesty, and they have, righteousness in their heart eventually. And by women, of course, because today women are being objectified. As you mentioned in his class before, that this has been happening in Hollywood as well, and that women are being harassed. So if this is not being done, therefore it is both protecting women and men.
All right, Jazakallah, Awais Sahib. Just a brief comment as well, that the analogy you gave, the example you gave in the beginning, that was of a hungry dog and soft bread, that should have been a bit more carefully given to your colleague. I think that is a brief comment by me. Thank you very much.
I think just off that point, it's important, isn't it, that we need to read the scenario as well. It's a colleague you're talking to.
Yes, I think Awais Sahib, Jazakallah for your short video which you produced, and you made a really good effort. So as Fatih Sahib was saying, this is a question that would probably be asked, if we can see the question, by a non-Muslim at work. So I think first of all it would be good to address the non-Muslim and say, look, probably in your mind, according to the media, you feel that this is a stone age-old practice which has no room in a modern developed society. But we also don't believe in such a Purdah which suppresses women and takes away their rights and doesn't give them education. The Purdah that is in the true Islam, as the Holy Quran says, that there is no hardship. The religion is not supposed to bring about hardship, and the true Sharia or true Islam is there to alleviate burdens and troubles and dangers. So the real Purdah is actually to liberate women. It's actually giving them space to, as in the words of many women themselves, to display their beauty wherever they want to display it, and to not display it where they not want to display it. So rather than oppress, it actually is a way to give them power, to give them choice. So I think if you're addressing a non-Muslim, I've just given some brief arguments, it's useful to also express it in that way as well.
I could also have a quick comment. or?
I think we need to be careful when we say the West and the East, or make that distinction. I think this is an issue that is faced not just in particular countries or particular hemispheres, rather it's a global issue. I think we need to be careful how we address that issue.
How we're addressing it. Jazakallah for that. Just as a reminder for our viewers, the prize for this whole competition, Face to Face, is of course that the winner will be given the opportunity to present a show here on MTA International. So that's the prize. The winner will be able to come here and present a show. We're going to go over now to Africa, in Nigeria, to Hafiz Bello Saab. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Hafiz Bello Saab, tell us a bit more about your preparation.
The speech regarding the non-Muslim, the first thing I did was to make a case to support the use of gay fodder, to express to the non-Muslim that it's a value and it promotes the right of women, contrary to what the non-Muslims feel about it. We should make a strong case, actually, to support the use of fodder, and that it further reinforces attainment of the purpose of creation of mankind, and particularly the women population.
And Hafiz Bello Saab, tell us about the previous programs you've been watching. How are you finding it so far?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. First of all, this is a very great opportunity for all Hajjim across the world. Personally, I've learned from my colleagues. Their videos are quite resilient and something to learn from. So I'm really impressed with the contribution from all.
Jazakallah for that. Let's go on to your video response.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will look at the question you raised on powder, the use of powder, in two perspectives: the spiritual part and the social part. On the spiritual part, a key part of Muslims, or instructions to Muslims, is following the dictates of Almighty Allah. And one of such is what we have in the 6 articles of faith, where we have believe in Allah, believe in angels, believe in the books, believe in the prophet, believe in destiny, and believe in their resurrection. Now, one of such instructions to Muslims was in Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah Al-Nur, and other parts of the Quran, directing men and women to lower their gaze. And this is a direct instruction from Almighty Allah. Prophet Muhammad SAW, during his lifetime, the companions and the women do ensure the use of powder in line with the instructions in the Holy Quran. The promised Messiah ﷺ in this regard also advised us that when we go out, we should walk on the street with our eyes almost closed, and that's to save us from the immoral or evil activities in the society. His Holiness Hazrat Mazur Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, mentioned in his Friday sermon in January 2004 that women were encouraged to use powder to actually promote their participation in productive engagement. And that takes me into the social part. The social importance of the use of powder are quite enormous, because it gives women the liberty and the freedom to actually engage in even professional activities and other such active duties that are legal, and they wish to engage in some of them. So it doesn't stop women, contrary to what some people say in some corners, that it means it enslaves women. No, it actually promotes women participation, in different activities in the society. Use of powder doesn't stop a woman from exhibiting the best intelligence. It doesn't stop a woman from having the best vocal ability or even spiritual engagement. So in essence, it promotes women participation freely without any molestation or harassment. So 4 reasons women need to use powder. Number 1 is a direct instruction from Almighty Allah. And number 2, it saves women from molestation and harassment in the society. Number 3, it helps women to achieve their professional callings and goals without being afraid of men, wayward men, looking at them or making them uncomfortable in some cases. And number 4, it helps women to achieve the essence of their creation. Assalamu alaikum.
That was Hafiz Bello Sahib from Nigeria. Khuddamul Sahib, I'm not sure if he anywhere in these results, but he definitely some brownie points for his outfit, which was very nice indeed.
Yeah, no, everything about him, his whole demeanour, mashallah, was very great. And it's nice to see so many different faces from across the world, participate. My only feedback will be, I thought that, personally, I felt engaged. I thought he did a good job. Maybe for me it sounded a bit monotonous, and his expressions, maybe you could be more expressive, because you are speaking to your friend, and I'm sure you'll smile as well, you use hand gestures as well. So all these elements come into play when you're actually speaking to an individual. Your body language should also be convincing enough with the words that you're using.
And just coming on from that moment, so how important is delivery? I mean, that's one of the ways that our contestants are being marked.
I think Hafiz Bello Sahib did reasonably well. His demeanour was calm and composed, and he was very, I think, fluent. And he explained the whole concept of parda by dividing it into like 2 main categories, by actually explaining the religious importance of it and by explaining the social importance of parda. So I think he did reasonably well, yes.
Bello Sahib, how are you taking the feedback so far?
Yes, thank you very much. That point is brilliant. I'm happy, and these are areas I would need to also take note of. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll go on to Amir Sahib.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hafiz Bello Sahib, the way he constructed his argument, it was Hafiz Sahib, you did very well. You constructed it in a very logical and structured way. So I commend you on that. I would just add perhaps one point that would be useful again, because we've looked at the question as being addressed to a non-Muslim colleague. One point that Khalifa Rabbi has mentioned quite often is that this is of course an instruction, but we advise and we admonish. We don't compel anybody to do it. The Quran says there's no compulsion in religion, although we believe it's the best way. Perhaps in the non-Muslim's mind it's something which is extreme and forced. So whilst we think this is the way and we believe it's an instruction and they have to do it, it's not something that we force upon anyone. We advise and we admonish like we do with all the instructions in Islam.
And of course, I think the topic at hand is very, very current indeed as well. I mean, it's all over the news, right?
Yes, definitely. I think we all experience it on a daily basis, and it's a very pertinent issue that needs to be addressed. I mean, like Amir Sahib mentioned earlier as well, something that Hazur even addressed today, and it's something that the youth are very much facing, so hence the whole purpose of this whole scenario that was given.
Of course. Before we go on to our next contestant, just as a reminder, the viewers at home will be given the opportunity to cast their votes for the top 2 contestants they feel should go on to the semi-final rounds. And of course, the prize for this competition is the opportunity to present on MTA International as well. That's the prize which we are offering for our winner, of course. The website is mta.tv/face2face, where you can, of course, cast your vote. We're going to go over to Pakistan again now, where we have Sayyid Waqar Sahib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sayyid Waqar Sahib, the judges are about to watch your video. Are you confident?
Yeah, I fairly am.
You sound confident. Tell us a bit more about your preparations.
I watched a couple of addresses of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis, one to a convention in USA and another in the United Kingdoms, and I also read a khitab of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi, and also consulted some family members.
MashaAllah, that's very good. Mohammed Sahib, he said he's confident. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It is obviously very good for him.
Okay, well,
what can I say?
Let's go ahead and see your video response.
Parda is an Islamic principle that comes under fire these days from anti-Islam elements. Some factions, while hailing the beauty of the other entire Islamic teachings, indulge in debasing the teachings of Parda, specifically. How peculiar it must be for them that the all-knowing Lord has created such imbalance in this one aspect, while all the others seem perfect. Thus it becomes imperative to explore the philosophy of Parda in Islam. Islam is a religion for all times and ages, and it envisions a society that is free from vice and is harmonious. The teachings of Parda are for both men and women. It is not a means to suppress or subjugate a particular gender. Rather, it guarantees freedom and security to every individual. The Holy Quran commands men and women to lower their gazes whenever situations compel them to come into contact with one another so as to preserve their sanctity. And after all, it is this ability of self-control that Islam teaches which distinguishes us from animals. It is essential to understand that Islam has clearly defined roles for men and women according to their physical and biological forms. Men are to cater for all the material needs of their families, and women's responsibility is the upbringing of their children. Women can do professional work if need be, but their primary role is to nurture responsible citizens who are going to take up the reins of the society in the future. The allegation against Islam that it usurps the rights of women on account of Parda is extremely flawed. Islam has put so much dignity in the role of women, and the prosperity of future generations has been linked to them. Furthermore, there is no barring them from going out or even doing jobs, but they are required to cover themselves up so that they may freely do whatever they want without falling prey to evils that may emanate from the men around them. Their veils are just a barrier for men, and it signifies their value. Covering up of bodies is a sign of civilization and not otherwise. It cannot be forgone in the name of modernity or equality. If we look at the religious clergy like the Pope, the nuns and priests, even the portraits of Virgin Mary, all don dignified outfits. Thus Islam does not go around putting unnecessary restrictions on people and making life difficult for them. Rather, it says that the Almighty Allah knows what discord can arise from the free intermingling of men and women, and how we should abstain from it.
That was Sayyid Waqas Sahab from Pakistan. Amir Sahab, he said he was confident, he seemed confident. What about his content?
Sayyid Waqas Ahmed Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So definitely, I would give you good marks on confidence, and you did really well in your delivery. So I would say for content, my humble and constructive criticism would be that you focus a lot on theory. So you gave a lot of theoretical arguments, but it perhaps lacked practical examples that a colleague at work could relate to. So as a brother before, a contestant alluded to, which Hazur this morning in his Waqf No class. So basically what you could say to a non-Muslim colleague is that, look, we have, in your system, or in the system here currently in the West, is completely unrestricted freedom and permissiveness. Does that system work or not? We're seeing for the last few months, since this certain Hollywood producer has been exposed, there's been a ripple effect and a massive domino effect of exposure, of exploitation of women that we're seeing from every strata of society, from parliament to the arts, to the field of theatres, to the field of cinema, etc. Wherever you look, you're seeing that this system is not working of complete and unrestricted freedom. So what we are saying is not what you have seen on the media, whereas women are completely shut away in their homes, but rather to have some check in order for them to live their lives better. And that's what I think, if you were to give some practical examples based on what's happening today. And actually, to add to that, there's actually a well-known Hollywood actress who came out after these exposure of this information and said, look, I feel that I should dress more modestly. I feel that now my privacy, my beauty should be kept private. Right. And she started saying those things which are Islamic, and she was lambasted in the media for that. So I just feel that whilst you were very confident, it was very theoretical, and to connect with the person to give some practical examples based on what's happening today, as beloved Hazur did this morning.
Of course, Mohammed Sahib.
I think he did well, as Amir Sahib has explained, that there was nothing wrong with his arguments, apart from, as Amir Sahib has explained, that he could have actually elaborated those arguments further by giving different current day examples and illustrations. Yeah, I would agree with Amir Sahib, and one thing which I would like to mention was that he sounded more like as he was giving a lecture, probably, rather than talking with a friend or like his
scenario
colleague. Yeah, so I think he should have been like more as if he was in a discourse with a friend. So if he had kept that demeanor, that would have actually been much better.
Did you pick up on that point, which Mohammed Sahib just mentioned, that it's more like you're speaking to, well, you are speaking to a colleague?
Yes, I did. That's a fair point, I think.
Okay,
and one thing which I would like to say, Waqas Sahib, you said in your video that parda, the purpose of parda is to preserve the sanctity of women. So I think the word sanctity probably was not appropriately used there, because parda is to preserve modesty. Sanctity is basically the holiness or sacredness of somebody, probably something basically. So I think you should have been careful about that as well.
Khuddamul Sahib, how's the level so far? We've had 3 contestants.
It's been good so far. I've enjoyed particular one individuals, and that could be evident in the score that I've given as well. But one thing that I've noticed, that every single one of them have said that we've listened to Hazur as well. And like Amir Bhai mentioned, like Mohammed Sahib mentioned, it's those practical examples that Hazur presents as well. Especially in the last few months, when Hazur has spoken on the Jalsa Salana of the United Kingdom and the Germany, addressing the Lajna and addressing these very pertinent issues. Hazur's given a practical example. For 2 things that came to mind straight away is that concert that this woman said herself, that there should be a women-only concert because of the abuse that women usually face in these places. Yes, we don't condone going to concerts, but I'm just saying that Hazur gave this practical example. And one other was that news that came out that this parliamentarian said that there should be a women's only tube, addressing the issues of immorality that it stems from men. So these are practical examples that can be presented.
Waqas Sahib, I hope you took that feedback on board. Some very crucial points there as well made by our judges. Of course, at the end of the program, you at home, the viewers, can cast your own vote about who you think was the best in terms of the delivery, in terms of the argumentation and conviction. 2 contestants you can choose. You can go on mta.tv/face2face. We're going to go now to our final contestant, who is across the pond in Canada. His name is Mahir Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Ji, wa alaikum assalam.
Mahir, it's quite cold here in the United Kingdom. How cold is it in Canada?
Yeah, it's getting colder. Today we had a little bit of snow, but they're saying we're in for a brutal winter this year.
And is snow a positive thing in Canada? Because we certainly like it.
Sorry?
Is snow a positive thing in Canada?
It depends who you're asking. I have no problem with snow, but there's a lot of boring adults who don't like it. But no, I love it.
Right, and Mahir Sahib, tell us about your motivation. Why did you compete?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of things you want to say, opinions you have, but there's not necessarily the best platform to express these views. What can be better than MTA International, which has transformed and revolutionized so many hearts, as we've heard in the khutbah of Hazur Anwar this Friday as well. So obviously, MTA is a remarkable platform to speak on.
And what about the scenario which was given out for this week's show? How important is that for you?
No, definitely. It's a very, pressing issue. We're seeing it all over in the media. It's something that, many people who are non-Muslim are asking these questions. So it's definitely, something that needs to be discussed.
Okay. Well, let's go on to your video response and see what the judges have to say.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, first of all, it's important to realize that the Holy Quran has established the three moral states of man. The first one being the natural state, where man is closer to his primitive stages, and the final stage, which is the soul at rest, where man has achieved the highest level of morals as defined by the Holy Quran. Now, in order to achieve the latter, Allah has provided many guidelines and principles we must follow in order to move away from our primitive stages as much as possible. One of these guidelines is parda. In the Holy Quran, Surah An-Nur, verse 31, the men are commanded to lower their gaze, and in the following verse, the women are commanded to cover their beauty. Now, this is based off of pure biology, as there is a natural attraction between the men and the women. But in order to mitigate this to avoid indecent and immoral activity, these guidelines have been given. It moves us further away from our primitive stages and closer to a more civilized being. Now, the Islamic instructions given to the women are often criticized by the opponents of Islam, as they say these teachings are too extreme or too radical. Yet when we look at Western society, which seems to champion freedom and claims to have liberated women, and we examine the clothing trends, be it from casual to formal, or business to athletic, we always see that in this society, the women are expected to be wearing less than men. And there is no secret that women's bodies are constantly objectified and used in marketing in a way that men's bodies are not. And when we dig deeper, we realize that many of the owners, the CEOs, and designers of these female apparel brands are actually men. So in reality, it is Islam that removes this power from the men who want women to dress a certain way for their own desires, whereas Islam simply calls for the opposite, in fact liberating the women and moving us towards a civilized society. And at the end of the day, when we believe in a religion, we believe that everything it teaches is true, as it comes from a divine source. And if parda is a commandment of the Holy Quran, then samitna wa ata'na, we hear and we obey. Jazakallah.
That was Mahir Ahmed from Canada. Mohammed Saab, initial thoughts?
I think he did very well, I think, because he only had 3 minutes. And he used only, I think, about 2 minutes out of those 3. Right. And yet he was able to say and construct very valid arguments about explaining the concept of parda. So he did well. Could I ask him something? Yeah. Sure, go ahead. Mahir Sahib. Mahir Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Ji, walaikum assalam.
Yeah, Mahir Sahib, I think you did very well, and using about 2 minutes, you did well actually to explain the whole concept of parda. You said that in Surah An-Nur, men are commanded to lower their gazes and women are commanded to dress up modestly or to cover their bodies. I think you should have mentioned that it's the same injunction both for men and women, because women are also commanded to lower their gazes and guard their chastity. So you should have mentioned that as well, and then you should have gone on further to explain that women are also instructed to cover their bodies as well in the second verse which you mentioned. I think do you want to elaborate that a bit in detail?
No, I understand your point, and I think it's right. I should have done that.
Yeah, because it is the same injunction both for men and women, and you should have explained that parda in essence is basically guarding the chastity and lowering the gazes, and the injunction was first given to men, and then in the second verse it was given to, the same injunction was given to women, and then God Almighty further said that to safeguard the beauty of women, they need to be covered as well.
I'm sorry, Mahir Saab's from a country where I'm sure he gets asked this question a lot. How was his effort?
Mahir Saab, I think, Assalamu alaikum, I think you did pretty well. I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Mahir Saab, are you there?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask that, do you feel if you were in a real life situation with a work colleague, do you feel that you would have conveyed it and your delivery would be in the same way as you did?
I think so, because I would want to draw these connections from the real world. Because this is someone who is willing to convert. They're obviously very new to the content. So you want to give them, a brief example of what the religion says, and then draw that parallel connected to what they see around them.
Sure. So I think overall, Mahir Saab, you did very well. and you did convey a lot of good arguments and good points. Again, I feel that one thing that perhaps is useful to do, and I think that is perhaps missing from some of the speakers, is to identify what is the issue in their minds. And probably the issue in their mind is that they have a perception of Muslim women of being oppressed, of not being allowed to live their lives, and not having proper education, not being allowed to go out for their jobs. So if you tell them, no, this is a wrong perception, actually Muslim women, there's many Muslim women who are very highly educated, who observe the hijab, who are doctors, who are teachers, who are in every profession. They still live their lives and perform their duties and keep their modesty. So therefore, if that is the case, then that shouldn't be an issue. It's a choice, and they do it freely. And if you ask Muslim women, themselves,
we're just running out of time. We'll go quickly to Khuddamul Sahib, and then we're gonna.
Just a quick question to Mahir Sahib. It seemed that there was something on your screen. Were you reading the answer, or could you explain that quickly?
No, it was just I had points in front of me, so I could be concise in the minutes. But no, that was coming from my mind, not necessarily reading.
That's wonderful. It's good to know that you're so fluent, mashallah.
Jazakallah for that, and Jazakallah to all our contestants. They were 5 very decent, very good responses. The judgment, of course, is on the judges, and of course you at home right now. The website right now is open for your judgment. You can go on to mta.tv/face2face, where you can go and cast your vote for the top 2 contestants you believe should go through to the semi-finals. So that's mta.tv/face2face. The names I'll go over again. From New Zealand, we had Taslim Ahmed. From Pakistan, Awais Rabbani. Hafiz Bello from Nigeria, Syed Waqas Ahmed from Pakistan, and Mahir Ahmed from Canada. Now, over the last few programs, we've also been playing some of the snippets and clips of those contestants who unfortunately didn't make it into the final 25, but of course were very good as well. The topic they were addressing was, what is the need for religion? So we're going to go over to a small clip and see some of those contestants who couldn't make it into these group stages.
God has given us guidance throughout the history, through His prophets, through His messengers. He has given us His attributes. He taught us how to be patient, how to be kind, how to serve mankind. He gave us morals as well, how to be good from inside. He made us spiritually stronger.
Religion is also important because every worldly affair is connected with it. It discusses with us the rights of neighbors as well as the rights of relatives. It commands us to be polite and kind to every person, whether you know them or not.
Religion, as an English word, means the belief in a supernatural being. The true purpose of adopting religion is that man should acquire such certainty concerning God, who is a fountainhead of salvation, as if one can see Him with one's eyes. One has to adopt a religion through which this certainty can be acquired, so that he can fear God and shun evil.
We seem to get into difficulties when we move away from religion, in our own lives, in our society, and in our world. As we all move away from religion, we veer to a path that we don't know, because it has no structure, it has no rules, it has no morality to it. It's whatever happens, happens.
It is religion that provides us the knowledge to recognize our Creator and build a relationship with Him. It is religion that shapes up our morality to perfection so that we gain the pleasure of our Creator.
This draws the line between religion and the non-celestial organizations. While religion plays its role as a responsibility with no worldly remuneration.
What is a religion? Religion is a bundle of instructions and interdictions that are placed by God Himself. And to their accession, there is a reward or a punishment for every kind of deed.
So, the main purpose of religion here, why we really need religion, is to create peace among souls, among ourselves as human beings, because the sole purpose of worshipping Allah is to fear Him and reach the destiny of, or the destination of being among the righteous people.
Religion literally means reunion, reunion with the Creator. The other synonyms for this word in other languages like deen, mazhab, dharam, they also mean a path that leads to the Creator.
Religion is necessary for inner peace and security. We consider the thing that inner peace and security is the thing without which a man is incomplete.
And they were those who participated in the competition, didn't make it quite through, but of course were very good responses to why there is a need for religion. Now, today's scenario was your colleague at work is prepared to convert to Islam, but doesn't quite understand the need for parda. We heard our 5 responses, the judges gave their feedback, you voted at home. We do have 2 names now who will be making it through to the semi-finals. The first is from New Zealand. Taslim Ahmed has made it through, mashallah. Taslim, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Okay, Taslim, before I speak to you, I'm also going to announce the second name, and that is our brother from Nigeria, Hafiz Belosab. Taslim?
Yes.
How do you feel? Did the hard work pay off?
Yes. Alhamdulillah. Grace of Allah, yes.
Clearly. Now, going forward, what are your plans to improve your argumentation, delivery, and of course, conviction?
I think that one of the things that I'd like to focus on is elaborating on the arguments a little bit more and providing a little bit more evidence to the argument.
Okay, perfect. And seeing the videos of the other contestants, how does that make you feel?
It's good because I think that I've picked up quite a few things. Everyone had some really good elements, and I'd like to incorporate those as well.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah Taslim, and well done for your win right there, or getting through to the semi-finals. We have with us also Hafiz Belosab on the line. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You've made it through to the semi-finals. What are your initial feelings?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'm really happy, and it's a further challenge to do better, inshallah.
And are you confident going forwards?
I didn't get that.
Are you confident going forwards with your next performance?
Inshallah.
And what about your preparations now from the feedback of the judges and of course watching the other contestants as well? How are you preparing to change or maybe modify your responses going forwards?
Yes, I've picked some points, and I really appreciate the feedback from the judges. I've noted that, and inshallah I would put them in my next presentation. May Allah help me.
Okay, Jazakallah for that. Judges, any comments or things to say for the winners?
Mashallah for getting through. This is just the start, I suppose. Improve on your style, improve on your argumentation. I think Taslim made a good point where he said that once you present an argument, make sure you have some sort of evidence and proof to back that argument, and make that scenario more relatable to the individual that you're actually speaking to. It shouldn't just be theoretical, but there should be practical examples.
Yep, Mumsa?
MashaAllah, I think they all are doing very well, and the program is fulfilling its purpose quite well. We have seen, for example, Taslim Sahib from New Zealand speaking very well, constructing his argument in a beautiful way, mashallah. Mahir Sahib from Canada, he did not go through it actually, but he did very well as also. And similarly, Hafiz Bello Sahib from Nigeria and so many others, they all are doing mashallah very well.
Mashallah. And Amir Sahib, what about those who didn't quite make it through? What advice or what comments you would give them?
Yeah, some of them, from the brief presentations, they seem to have done quite well. I would just say there's 3 categories. There's conviction, delivery, and argumentation. Some people do good in one and then they ignore the others. So in this show today, I thought it was very strong. There was very little between them in argumentation. Taslim Saab, personally, I voted for him because he seems like that's how you would actually speak to a work colleague. He was very natural, whereas some of the other ones were not as natural. So I would just say, in all three categories, try and do your best and focus on all three rather than just one or two.
Right, okay, and going forward for the next programs, Khuddamul Sahib, what advice would you give to the contestants?
Just reiterating what my fellow panelists have said, that it's just how you approach that scenario. Right. Carefully think about it. If it's a colleague, you should be speaking to it should be really casual and very laid back, but you should have strong argumentation. And don't just focus on one source, look at other sources as well. And it's important, I think we were discussing before as well, it felt that previous programs, the speakers seemed better prepared in the actual topic, and today maybe not as well prepared, but if you're going through, you should always be prepared for that scenario.
Just a quick one for Mom Sahib, how would you advise on argumentation? 20 seconds.
I think they should try to listen to the sermons of our Hazur, actually, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Sayyidullah Ta'ala bin Asir Aziz, because mostly the scenarios which are given, they are very contemporary. Yeah. And Hazur has extensively spoken about these topics. So if they listen to the speeches and sermons given by Hazur, they would be very helpful, because Hazur always explained these things with lots of different examples and different, like as Khuddamul Sahib also explained. So that would be very helpful for them, because Hazur, quoting from Quran, Hadith, and then from all the current actually statistics and everything, makes these scenarios very easy to understand. So if they follow the sermons and speeches of Hazur, that would be very beneficial.
Okay, Jazakallah. I'd like to thank the judges and of course the contestants who took part today. I'm sure all our viewers learned a great deal today as well. It's a very contemporary topic indeed. Now we're going to go, of course, with our next scenario for next week. It's going to be I'm going to make the announcement now. The next program will be on the 3rd of December. So the scenario is as follows. During a discussion about wealthy governance with an agnostic, you are asked how Khilafat is different from worldly forms of absolute control. That's the scenario, and we will be back with a number of video responses again next week, which is the 3rd of December. Jazakallah for watching. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.